The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Capitals with a 2-0 series lead. In the driver's seat, right? As Lee Corso would say, not so fast, my friends. I'll have some numbers on that coming up. It is draft day in the NFL, and boy, what a difference a year makes. A year ago, picking number 2, Jayden Daniels, we pretty much knew who the pick was going to be. It was, in fact, Jayden Daniels, and what a year it's been since he's been the quarterback. This year at 29, who knows? And whoever they pick, chances are you won't know who he is. If they stay at 29, which I don't think anybody really wants to see them do. I think with only 5 picks, you'd like to see them trade down and get more picks, but it's kind of a boring draft year for Washington. And you know what? That's what it should be. If your team is any good, you should be picking low in the draft. And this is, in fact, the lowest they have ever picked. Yeah, because when they won their Super Bowls, there were only 28 teams. Now they're picking number 29. The greatest number 28 pick, of course, was Darryl Green, who they took after winning their first Super Bowl in 1983. And Darryl Green wore number 28. And no one else will ever wear 28 again for the team, as it was finally retired this past season. We'll get to the Caps and the win last night. I just want to mention this about how big the draft has become. And we had Mel Kiper on a week and a half ago and replayed the interview yesterday. And at the end of it, I talked to him about what now I found out Dan Patrick is actually moving forward with. And it sounds just fantastic because he was able to pull this off for Brent Musburger. But writing a letter to the Hall of Fame, which will get the ball rolling for Mel to get what Brent Musburger is getting this year, and that's the Pete Rozelle Radio Television Award. It recognizes a great career in promoting the NFL and helping to make the NFL the business that it is today. Thanks very much in part to what Brent did with the pregame show. And now tonight we see the fruits of the great labor and long labor of Mel Kiper Jr., who was analyzing drafts back when he was in high school in the late 70s and came aboard with ESPN in 1984. And we've just seen it mushroom since then. But as you know, the draft is in Green Bay tonight. They are looking to break perhaps what they did last year in drawing 750,000 people. It could be more than that, as people are making the pilgrimage to Green Bay just for the draft. And, you know, it's funny how it has gotten to this point because 10 years ago, it was scheduled to be held at Radio City Music Hall in New York. It had been in New York forever, going back to when it was in a ballroom back in the 50s and 60s and 70s with Pete Rozelle writing the names of the picks on a chalkboard. Eventually, it moved to Madison Square Garden and then to Radio City Music Hall, where they could have a lot of fans in the stands to watch, and it was all free. And then in 2015, Radio City Music Hall was booked. They go, well, what do we do? Well, let's have it in Chicago. You know, Chicago is centrally located. Well, they drew 200,000 people there, and they went, whoa, this is NFL Woodstock. So now it moves from city to city to city. I'd like to see it happen here at some point, probably be a few years away, but to have it down on the mall would be fantastic. Have people around the reflecting pool. Maybe you could have it even on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Who knows? I mean, it's just insane to think about the possibilities. And it is just a monster moneymaker for the NFL, as everything is. And tonight they are offering VIP packages where people can sit in the NFL Draft Theater and pay $15,000 for seats. $15,000. And these are face value seats. The Super Bowl, they only have the chutzpah to go up to about, $2,200, $2,300 per ticket, and whatever they sell for the open market over that. And all the packages have been sold out. The VIP packages, all 392 of them, will generate $2.5 million in gross revenue for the NFL. That's not much compared to what the NFL makes, but it just shows you from one little thing here, they can make $2.5 million. There's a quote here from Benjamin Posmanic, who is an assistant professor of finance at St. Bonaventure University, he's written about the NFL, says that the profit represents something larger. He says the NFL is the best-run league in professional sports worldwide. They are not only remarkably popular, but have an uncanny ability to monetize their product. No kidding. Capacity for the draft in Wisconsin at the theater is about 1,800, and 400 of the seats will be set aside for the VIPs. And the previous record, prior to it being broken last year for attendance, was 600,000 for Nashville in 2018. Last year, 775,000 people in Detroit. It is just an unbelievable event. And to think that when it started, and I can remember going to drafts, let's see, the first one I really remember going to, I may have gone to one prior to that, but 1990, and it was held at Radio City Music Hall, I think. Might have been Madison Square Garden, I'm not sure. But there were no fans there. I don't remember that. Don't remember the fans sitting in the theater. I think it moved into a theater, it was the Felt Forum, something like that, in 92, 91. But by the 92 draft, and I went 92 and 93, as I remember, that they had all these Jets fans there, mostly Jets fans, because it's, in New York, it's easy for them to get there. And they were famous for booing the picks and the insane reaction, when they would take a tight end or a linebacker. Oh, they took the tight end. I can't believe it. 6 and 10, that's all they're going to be, And so it was growing and growing and growing, and now it is NFL Woodstock, and it takes place tonight. And so if you don't think Mel Kiper deserves credit for that, you're out of your mind. And maybe it's not all on Mel, but he gets a lot out of credit for what he did in helping to make this the event that it is. All right, Capitals getting it done last night at home.
As the puck drops, and Eller wins it, and that'll do it. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Montreal. The Capitals are up 2-0 in the series. They win 3-1 over the Habs.
That is John Walton on the Caps Radio Network. Alex Ovechkin, 2-0 series lead. Been there, done that.
Yeah, it's huge. It's going to be tough building to play. It's going to be crowd, and we just have to stick to the system and play the same way.
If you're not hearing Ovechkin get overly excited about this, you can understand why. In the history of the Capitals, they have blown 2-0 series leads 10 times. 10 times. Not all on Ovechkin, but 10 times they have blown series leads. It used to be an annual rite of spring where Tony Kornheiser in the Washington Post would write his choking dogs column, because time after time after time they would have a 2-game lead, whether it was 2-0 or 3-1, and it was usually Pittsburgh that they lost to. And here they go again, those choking dogs. And in the Ovechkin era, it's pretty much held up. This is his 16th time in the playoffs. 3 times they have blown 2-0 series lead. 2009 versus who else? Pittsburgh. They lost the series 4-3. 2013 against the Rangers. They lost the series 4-3. And then in 2019 against the Carolina Hurricanes, they lost the series in 7 after going up 2-0. And in Game 7, which was at now what they call Capital One Arena, they lost 4-3 in double overtime. So he has seen his share of blown 2-0 leads. That's why nobody's getting too worked up about this. But, what you have to have at this time of year is you have to have a goalie who stands on his head, whether it was Braden Holtby in 2018 when they won the Stanley Cup. There have been others over the years who have stood out at playoff time and have gotten them there. But right now, the player that they call LT, Logan Thompson, getting it done. Spencer Carbury, the Capitals coach.
When you watched LT tonight, that was the LT that we saw for, call it 40 games or whatever he was playing at the beginning of the year, where you could feel the confidence, you could feel the building with the energy with each save. It felt like he just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and he was tested. He made some huge saves in that third period to keep us in front.
25 of 26 saves. He gave up one goal early in the second period, but the Caps responded with 2 quick goals after that. All 3 of those goals in that second period were scored in a 3.5-minute span. And then they take that 2-1 lead into the third period, and as Carbury mentioned, I mean, it's, one wicked shot after another, and he's making some great saves, just save after save after save. And here's a guy who has some Stanley Cup experience. He's played in Vegas, and then coming here in the off season, and there was some question whether he was going to be healthy enough to start in this series, and it was going to be a game time decision for Game 1 on Monday. And sure enough, he's come out, and right now they're riding him. And again, the performance that he had in that third period, save after save after save. Here's Thompson on that.
Yeah, we knew they were going to come out in the third, just like they did last game, and it's easy to get into it when you make those saves. You're definitely right back into the game. I mean, could easily swing the other way, and a couple of those go in, and you're fighting it, right? So, luckily things went my way tonight, and we got the 2 points.
Yeah, and when you watch these games, and Barry's Verluga's got a column about this today, when you're looking at the clock and the Caps are up 2-1 and there's 4 minutes to go, those are the longest 4 minutes in sports. And, hockey's different than other sports. Like if an NBA team, let's say, is up, let's say 10 points, which I guess that would be the equivalent in hockey to a 1-goal lead, you're feeling pretty good about their chances to close out the game as long as they don't do anything stupid down the stretch. If they take care of business, if they continue to play the way they had been playing up to that point to build the 10-point lead, they should be able to close out the game. In football, one huge play can make a difference, whether it's a pick six or a long touchdown bomb. But in hockey, it's just pass after pass after pass. And, one pass can get intercepted and lead to a breakaway, or you get a fluky goal, a dirty goal. You just don't know. And Tom Wilson, he's been here through the wars. He's one of 4 players that played on the Stanley Cup team in 2018. He understands what it's like when you go into that third period and you're trying to close it out.
Yeah, it's part of playoff hockey. Obviously, the team that's behind is going to press. I think we can still do a little bit of a better job learning from that. But at the end of the day, we were coming back to the house. We were taking care of business in front of our own net. They get a couple good looks, but bend don't break in those moments. And obviously want to be on our front foot a little bit more, but they're going to take chances on everything. Obviously, they're pushing the game. They're pushing to tie it up. We just got to stay a little more aggressive.
So they go on to Game 3 on Friday night in Montreal. That's then the fourth game would be Sunday in Montreal, and if they have to come back, they don't play again until Wednesday. So it's every other day. If they lose one of the next 2 or both, the next game wouldn't be until Wednesday. Wouldn't be until Wednesday of next week, so they get a little break on that. But you look at these, these 2 games and how close they are. They could easily be down 0-2, right? I mean, a bounce here, a blown save here, you never know. 58 saves, 61 shots over the 2 games for Logan Thompson. And it's a, you talk about how these guys got it out. I don't know if you've been following him. Alex Alexiev, he had 3 teeth knocked out in Game 1, skated straight to the bench, then walked to the locker room. Nobody really knew much. I remember watching and thinking, I'm not sure what's going on here. They found 3 of his teeth on the ice after the game, 2 of his teeth. And he spent, I guess, a good deal of Wednesday in the dentist chair. And then, or yesterday, or maybe the day before, maybe it was Tuesday. They found the teeth, but he was back on the ice, played 14 minutes last night. And, it's all about being able to play at this time of year. It happens every year, by the way, that you find out, whether it's Alex Ovechkin or anybody else, that they've been playing with some type of an injury. Sometimes it's an injury that needs surgery. But these guys, and they don't talk about it. This is why you always hear upper body injury or lower body injury, and it's just not something that's ever discussed in hockey. And I remember talking to Chris Moore. Chris Moore had done sports radio for a long time, and before that, he was the radio voice of the New Jersey Devils for a number of years. And he said, they'd get on the team bus after the game, and there'd be a guy whose head is just completely wrapped in bandages, and he's sitting on the bus, and not a single player would say, "Hey, how you doing? How you feeling?" You just don't talk about it. It's in sight, but out of mind. Just forget about it. If you're able to put on a pair of skates and stay upright, you're on the ice. That's the way it is at this time of year. And the difference in regular season hockey and playoff hockey is just so different, and the intensity is just so great. And even a 2-0 lead or even a 3-0 series lead pretty much means nothing. It's until you close this thing out, and we'll see what the Capitals can do this weekend in Montreal. But even if they come home with, let's say, a 3-1 lead, I think this thing is far from over because, as we say, both these games, razor-thin margin, razor-thin. They won by 2 goals last night, but it was clinched with an empty netter. So, knuckle up. This is the time of year for the Caps. Coming up, we'll get to some NFL draft stuff, including looking back on last year's draft and what the Commanders did. And John Beck, who is a miserable quarterback for this franchise, but has become a quarterback's coach, working with, among others, Jayden Daniels, discusses the development of Daniels in year 1 and what maybe we can expect going into year 2 with whoever they add in the draft. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
There are some guys who do sports radio, and at this time of the year, they suddenly become experts on what an offensive lineman from a medium-sized school looks like on tape. He or she may know. May be able to evaluate tape. I certainly can. And I've never even heard of most of these guys that you're talking about in the mock draft for the Commanders. They're picking low. They don't have a 3rd or 5th round pick. They only have 5 picks. Last year, they had 6 picks in the top 100. And looks like they did pretty well with them. They were contributors, starting with Jayden Daniels, number 2 overall. Johnny Newton, number 36. That's a guy who had some injuries at Illinois, and he's the reason that they were able to say goodbye to Jonathan Allen. Mikey Sanderstill, who looks like he's going to be a star in this league, came along a little bit slowly, but by the end of the year was a first-rate cornerback. Then they took Ben Sinnott, tight end from Kansas State, number 53. Looks very good. Brandon Coleman, 67 overall, becomes a starter for them. Luke McCaffrey at 100 is going to be a very good slot receiver as time goes on. He hasn't been playing receiver very long. Remember, he started out as a quarterback in college. So they take those 6 guys in the top 100 and also got some contributors late in the draft. These guys, may hang around as special teamers for a while. Jordan McGee, linebacker from Temple, went number 139. Dominique Hampton, safety from Washington, 161. And Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who's an edge rusher from Notre Dame, got to play a little bit at the end of the year when they had some injuries. That's exactly what you want in a draft. I'm looking at, these draft grades are just ridiculous. So whoever did this ranked it as a B-. No, when you knock it out of the park with Jayden Daniels, that is a home run. That is a grand slam. So if they whiffed on every other pick that they made last year, what did they make, 9 picks? If they whiffed on the other 8, that's an A-plus draft. You got your quarterback of the future. And, keep your fingers crossed he stays healthy. But he's got everything you want, including the work ethic, the right attitude, a team guy, as we saw last night when he and Marcus Mariota and Sam Hartman showed up at the Caps game. Did you see Hartman chug a beer? Yeah. So that quarterback room, minus Josh Johnson, who's just been signed. I guess I don't know if he was at OTAs or maybe he's getting ready to go to OTAs or however that's going to work. But yeah, they all went together, and this is as good a story as could be written after the disastrous run of Dan Snyder. The previous 25 years, really 30 years, the end of the Jack Ken Cook, John Ken Cook era wasn't very good either. But it's so good right now, and that whatever happened in the rest of the draft, and they got contributors after Jayden Daniels, it really didn't matter. So these draft grades are just nonsense. But John Beck, who was well, he was a disaster as a quarterback for the Redskins. This was 2011. And John Beck, as you may remember, had been a quarterback at BYU, pretty decent quarterback. And when Kyle Shanahan was in Houston as an assistant coach, he supposedly stood on the table to draft John Beck. Well, he really never got an opportunity in Houston, winds up in Miami, then eventually makes his way to Baltimore, and he comes here. Well, nobody's ever given him a chance. Well, he got a chance to play, and he was horrible. He got sacked 10 times in a game against the Buffalo Bills. And then the last game that he started, he threw for like 100 yards and completed like 20 passes or something like that. It was just a little dink, 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 dink. He was bad. He was really bad. But John Beck has become sort of a quarterback guru. He works with a variety of quarterbacks, including Jayden Daniels. And when Beck was on the other day with Rich Eisen, he discussed the development that he's seen so far and where the ceiling might be, if there even is a ceiling for Jayden Daniels.
I love that guy's story, though. Like, Arizona State comes in with tons of talent, shaky, leaves, that whole thing at the locker where his teammates are doing crap at his locker, like, get this guy out of here. Like,
don't forget him being pissed about being thrown in the mix with a whole bunch of prospects, like Washington threw them all together, right? And supposedly he wanted no part of that. I mean, look, you get all this pre-draft stuff.
Yeah, like, here's the thing. Love Jayden, and he works his tail off, and it's really cool. I'm just like our group 3D QB. Yes. There's a group of us coaches, and we are a slice to this pie, right? Like, there's so many things that go into it. But the cool part is our opportunity to see somebody work. When somebody's that talented, they work that hard, and not just on field, but the off the field stuff that he does to prepare himself to be a great player.
Like what? Give me something, man.
I mean, right now it's the virtual reality, right? All of the hours that he logged in virtual reality. If you go talk to his offensive coordinator at LSU, the growth that he had, that just doesn't happen because you go throw footballs. It happens because of the intent, the purposeful things that you do in the meeting room, walkthroughs. What's your brain doing when you're not in the building? Like, the reality is, most quarterbacks are wired super, super competitively. And so when they're at a restaurant, you think that they're just living it up. I promise there are many times that plays run through their head.
No kidding.
Oh, yeah. When they're walking in their house, I mean, I know stuff with Dak Prescott where, like, we've been finishing a training session. We're going to go grab lunch. And he's in his front, like, kitchen area thinking through some of the things he was working on. Like, that's just the way a lot of these guys are wired. And so that's Jayden, right? Like, he had a drive to him that for 2 years we got to watch at LSU. And then it's amazing. Heisman Trophy, top pick, goes into his rookie year, and we're saying, all right, let's see how this goes. Like, we know AP over at the Redskins, Adam Peters, this is going to be really good. We know the offensive coordinator, this could be really good. And everybody went out and made plays. And that guy, I mean, you got him up there right now. His success happened also because of the people around him. Dan Quinn, the coach, I love Dan. Like, I got to spend some time around him in Dallas. Like, the way that the team functions offensively, the players around him. I mean, it's everybody in that building for that guy to be successful. And the cool part is it worked. It worked.
Yeah, and then they go ahead and get Tunsil. And they get Debo.
Yeah, they're adding pieces.
To add on top of it.
Yeah, it makes it exciting. Now there's some expectations, though, right?
Sure.
Like, before, it's like, let's see how this goes. And now, all right, man, this is going to be a playoff run. And now the expectations come in. And now, okay, how does the players and how does the organization handle the next set of expectations?
Well, he comes across as real jittery and lack of confidence. You know what I mean? Like, he's so good. He was so good. He is so good. And I'm just trying to give our viewers and listeners an idea of how you can, I guess, translate it to a draft class in a draft week. Who's next? What do you when you see or evaluating for a player to be so good? You know, how do you evaluate that? How do you see that in a draft process and go, that's what we need to do? I'm an owner. I need to replicate that. How do you translate it? Well, I think to somebody else.
Yeah, I think one thing that's tough is you can't see a player and say, if I can find somebody just like that player, it will work in this situation. They're all so different and unique. Like, even the personalities of a player. That's why, like, I tell guys, hey, when you go to the combine and throw, okay, yeah, it's kind of important. But the reality is those coaches have watched all of your throws through the season.
Yes.
Those are way more important than what you throw at the combine. The biggest thing at the combine is your interaction with the teams that are interviewing you. Like, that's how they get to see who you are. And then, like, when teams have their private workouts, they take the guys out to dinner. Like, coaches fly in, GMs fly in. They want to really get to know that person. It's more than just the physical capabilities on the field. It's more than just like the ability to process. It's everything. And then also, how does that go into the mixture of the team that you're bringing them into? Like, I'm sorry, but there are not 32 winning situations in the NFL. There is not. And the people in the NFL know that. Coaches that have been other places, been successful, then been given jobs at another organization to try to build that place up, spent 3 to 4 years working their tail off, and then they get fired. They learn the lesson really quickly. There are not 32 winning situations. And the tricky part is teams when they draft, are they fully aware? Like the question you asked me, John, tell us what we don't know about Jackson Dart. Well, I need to know what you think I know or what you think you know. That's going to help. It's these teams as well. Do they really know who they are? Do they really know what they lack? You can't just bring in a great player and go, oh, wow, he's really good. We should start winning now. It's everything.
Well, I'm not going to ask you a team name here, but before we throw it a break, and then we'll get you one more segment. Do you, in 3D QB or others in your profession, like, again, you've got Dart, you've got Dylan Gabriel in this year's draft. Do you openly talk within your circle of teams that you don't want them to go to? I hope this team does not take this kid because of what you just said.
I mean,
yes or no?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
I'm telling you, it's the truth, right? Like, and
love it.
It's not just you and your colleagues; it's everyone else. Like, they are walking around saying, "I hope my guy does not go there."
How can you not? If you've experienced the reality of what it is,
yes,
and you've also I've lived it, I've coached people through it, I've seen it, I've communicated with coaches that are. If I were to answer that question and be like, oh no, I don't do that, that's like saying I didn't experience all those things. Like, if you've experienced the reality of the NFL, you know that is true. There are some situations. And look, I'm not saying the organization can't be one that you would want them to go to.
Look at Washington, by the way. Like 2 years ago, if you got Jayden Daniels, I absolutely want him to go to Washington.
I know. Look,
you'd have never said that in a million years.
Those organizations are moving and growing and changing, and there are good times to be a part of it, and sometimes they're not. Yes. And that's just the reality of it, And sometimes there are some really good organizations. Like I mentioned Baltimore.
Yeah.
I had the privilege to be a Raven. Like that place, the building, it's just one of those spots where you're just like, man, those guys do a lot of really, really good things. And you would say, I'd almost say regardless of position, I know so many people in that building, that is a good spot for you to grow and learn and develop. Yeah. But not all 32 are like that.
Yeah, and it was a bad organization when Beck was in Washington. But Mike Shanahan was the head coach, and if you look at the staff, they're all head coaches in the NFL now, including Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay and LaFleur. I mean, they're all over the league. So I don't think you could blame it on bad coaching. The fact is, he wasn't good. He was not an NFL quarterback, as it turned out. I think he's kind of hinting at the idea, if I wind up in the right organization, maybe things work out. Nah, I don't think it was going to work out for him. But if he did some coaching of Jayden Daniels, and Jayden Daniels is as good, take a bow, John Beck. Now, in looking at this draft from last year, and this year's draft really doesn't have the opportunity to be as successful as that one, obviously, and that's a product of finishing as well as they did, making it to the NFC Championship game. But the 81 draft, and that is the greatest draft that has ever been held by this organization. It was first year of Joe Gibbs. They had gone 6-10 the year before. Even under Jack Pardee, they had traded away picks. Bobby Beathard was the general manager, and Beathard really shined in this draft. Man, you look at what they did. They took Mark May with their first overall pick, which was number 20 overall. I believe they traded down to do that. And May became an outstanding right tackle, not a Hall of Fame tackle, but was part of 2 Super Bowl teams. In the third round, they took Russ Grimm, who's in the Hall of Fame, who has 3 Super Bowl rings. In the fifth round, they took Dexter Manley, who was a big part of 2 Super Bowl winning teams. In the 8th round, this is when they had 12 rounds. It's now only 7. 12 rounds, 1981. Charlie Brown, who was a big part of their Super Bowl win in Super Bowl 17, part of that team that didn't have Art Monk for the Super Bowl because he was hurt. Charlie Brown was outstanding. They took Darrell Grant in the 9th round as a defensive tackle from Rice. Yeah, Darrell Grant, defensive tackle from Rice. No. He was an offensive tackle at Rice, and they turned him into a defensive tackle. That was the brilliance of the coaching staff and the drafting. Darrell Grant became a huge part of 2 Super Bowl winners. And then in the 12th round, they took Clint Didier, tight end, who was also a part of 2 Super Bowl winning teams. And, actually, this was crazy. This is how things sometimes work. Washington wasn't looking for a quarterback. They knew Joe Theismann was going to be their quarterback in 1981. But Bobby Beathard, just for due diligence, in case, he maybe wanted to make a trade or however he wanted to do it, he went to the pro day for Portland State. Now, why would you go to the pro day for Portland State? Well, there was Neil Lomax, who went early in the first round to the St. Louis Cardinals, quarterback. And quarterback's got to have somebody to throw to. So he got his favorite wide receiver, who looked like he was headed for a job in private industry or maybe coaching high school. Clint Didier, a wide receiver, throwing to him, and Beathard looks at him and thinks, I can turn him into a pass-catching tight end. And sure enough, he did. Didier was a big part of the Super Bowl 17 winning team and the Super Bowl 22 winning team. So that is, that's the greatest draft they've ever had. Between those players, that's 12 Super Bowl rings, 3 for Grimm, 2 for May, 2 for Manley, 2 for Grant, 2 for Didier, and 1 for Charlie Brown. Pretty darn good. But if you look at this draft from last year, we're really projecting down the line. But you got 6 players who are taken in the top 100, all of whom could be contributors to big-time winning teams, starting, of course, with Daniels, number 2 overall. Johnny Newton could turn out to be an outstanding defensive tackle. Mikey Sanderstill looks like he's got real potential to maybe be a Pro Bowl corner. Ben Sinnott, solid tight end. Brandon Coleman, solid offensive lineman. And Luke McCaffrey may turn out to be, I don't know if he'll be Julian Edelman, but he's going to be pretty darn good. And he's got a great work ethic. He's the one that's doing all these 5 o'clock walkthroughs and going over the plays with Jayden Daniels. So I would say that, when we look at this draft from last year, 5 years down the road, you're going to say they knocked it out of the park no matter what happened after Daniels. But if you add that in, you may have, much like in 81, you had the backbone of what became the greatest run in the history of the team, where they went to 4 Super Bowls over a 9-year period, winning 3 of them. Pretty damn good. Coming up, Tom Pelissero, NFL Network. He's the one that had that anonymous quote from an NFL coach that Shadeur Sanders interview was one of the worst that he'd ever seen, and it ended with, and he's not that good. Shadeur Sanders is the most interesting player going into this draft. It appears he could go as high as 3 or maybe not at all tonight. May even drop out of the first round. That's how nutso this is. But there's an extenuating factor on this, which Pelissero gets into, which I think is worth your listen. But he's the unsurest thing we've seen for a long time, I think, in this draft for quarterbacks. And this is Pelissero on one big factor on this, which is I don't think talked about that much, but certainly worth considering.
Shadeur's best landing spots in round 1 are 3 to the Giants, which, again, they've put in as much homework on him as any team on any player in this draft. Mm-hmm. The next logical landing spot, in my mind, based on what I know, is the Steelers at 21. That visit, by all counts, went well. Shadeur was on the Insiders that night and was saying, hey, Mike Tomlin reminds me of my dad and their values and how they are. The Steelers need a quarterback. They're still waiting to hear from Aaron Rodgers. They can't set themselves back like they did 3 years ago when they drafted Kenny Pickett, and that flamed out. So, but they're in a position where potentially they could have their choice of the second quarterback in this draft. If it's not one of those 2 teams, then there's a decent chance somebody either needs to trade up, like the Giants back into 1, maybe the Browns, although I don't know that I really see that being a spot, or else Shadeur may not go in the first round. It would be, a GM said this to me a few days ago, that if he were guessing just on basically the splits in his room, what he's heard, he said, I bet you half the teams in the league have Shadeur as the number 2 quarterback and half have Dart as the number 2 quarterback. So there's a realistic chance, too, that Jackson Dart could end up being the second quarterback off the board here. Shadeur, it's not that there's not like for him in the league. But I had another GM just say to me, you're probably not going to find a consensus on him 100% in any building. So it's, do you like him?
Why is that? Why is that?
It's a combination of different things.
Give me
Start with just the physical traits. Okay, you're looking for, there's one quarterback in this draft who, based on all the coaches, all the scouts, I published 12,000 words on this on NFL.com last night. There's one guy who profiles as a starting quarterback in the NFL, and that's Cam Ward. Would he have been the number one pick last year? No. But he's definitely in that mix of like a guy who you think this guy could be a starter. Everybody else, Shadeur, Dart, Milroe, Tyler Shuck, you get back and forth on all those guys. With Shadeur, it has to do with the physical traits. Now, he's really accurate. He's really tough. People really like that about him. He's got, as many wow throws on tape as anybody you're going to find. But he's not the biggest guy, does not have the biggest arm, and does not have the elite athletic traits, which when you play like he does, and go through his highlight reel, there's times he's getting the ball out on time, catch it, throw a goal ball. But there's a lot of times where he's creating and he's out of the pocket and there's a little bit of Caleb Williams to it. That doesn't play at the next level unless you're really, really athletic or really have a good arm. And Shadeur has, solid in both categories, but it's not impressive. So it's partly that. And then, frankly, it's the unknown of how is this guy going to function when he's outside of an environment where his dad is the only one who's been his coach.
That's not fair.
Listen, it's not fair to the extent that he can't help who his dad is. But think about this, Rich.
That his success is because of his dad. I mean, obviously,
no.
That he wouldn't have been. I don't think he would have been Jackson State's quarterback if his dad wasn't there, and it's not because he couldn't make Jackson State. I don't know if that would have been his first choice. I understand that, but that's
he's never getting benched by his dad. You mess up in a game, you're not getting pulled. Do you have the same levels of accountability when you go into a new building? And that's some of the stuff the teams wanted to talk through with him in the meeting.
And they didn't get answers?
His interviews did not go great by and large. Again, sounds like it went fine with the Steelers. That's certainly a possibility. The Giants have had a number of different touch points with him. Totally possible they're comfortable with it. Totally possible there's some team we're not even talking about that's comfortable with Shadeur Sanders, and maybe not draft him in the top 10, but maybe as we get to round 2, they go, this is tremendous value. The guy was the Big 12 Player of the Year. He was a second-team All-American. He did, they went to a program that was 1-11, and they improved to 4 wins and to 9 wins over those 2 seasons. I mean, there's a lot to be said for that. But if you have a guy coming in who is probably going to need to adjust his play style and might need time to do that, and then you're also trying to figure out what's the projection for how he's going to fit into the culture, what type of culture shock is he in for, that just leads to more unknowns. And that's why it's a complicated, it's a polarizing evaluation. Again, there are some people who are much higher on Shadeur the player than others. Everybody has the same unknowns, and I made the comparison in the story I wrote to a guy who was drafted here, Brian Brom. You remember back in 2007, there were mock drafts that had him going number 1 overall. He ends up going back to Louisville, decides to play another season there, doesn't play as well, slides all the way to the late second round. Brian Brom had been coached by his dad all the way up through high school. He was coached by his brother at Louisville. He had was in a position where the Packers, as it was explained to me at the time, they made a calculated bet that, hey, when he gets outside of the environment of only being coached by his family members, he's going to spread his wings and fly. Said the guy crumbled. He was not even the best rookie quarterback in camp. Matt Flynn beat him out for the number 2 job, and Brian Brom was out of the league in 3 years. Again, that's not to say that's what's going to happen to Shadeur, but when you're talking about a completely different culture and accountability structure to what you're going to have in the NFL, those are the things that teams at minimum have to talk through and figure out, okay, can we create the type of environment where this guy's going to have success?
Yeah, I think that's a factor. That's Tom Pelissero, NFL Network. Shadeur Sanders has been coached by Deion since he was playing like Pee-wee. He coached him in high school, then he took him with him to Jackson State, and then he took him with him to Colorado. He's going to be coached by other people. Now, there's also this part of it, that if the team takes him, let's say it's the Giants at 3. Let's say they roll the dice, and this is a team that's on shaky ice. They're going to have another 5-6 win season. They're gone. Do you bring in a guy who, if he doesn't live up to hopes, that Deion is the new coach the following year? Because that's got to be your move. If you're going to invest that highly in a quarterback, if you're going to take him as high as 3, you got to make sure he has the necessary support system. And the only support system he's known as a coach at every single level has been Deion Sanders. And that's something to think about. The coach's son. A lot of times, I've said this to a friend who's a coach, and I said, the coach's son either has to be the best player or the worst player. A lot of times he's the best player. There's no problem with that. None of the teammates have a problem with it. If he's the worst player, he gets off the bench from time to time, but nobody worries too much about it. If he's just a mediocre player and he gets, if you're talking basketball, easier to make this comp, and he gets too many shots or too much playing time or however it works, that's a problem with your team. And this has never been a problem with Shadeur, and he's never going to get benched because Dad is the coach. Dad tries to take him out of the game. That's Dad's decision, not the coach's decision, really. So this is another thing that is going to make teams pump their brakes. Like, okay, he's looked really good playing for Dad, but Dad's not going to be the coach next year. Could Dad be the coach the following year? Yeah, and that means that I'm not the coach the following year. Something to think about. Nice series being written by Kevin Merida in the Post about the LeBron James experience in Los Angeles. And speaking of fathers and sons, I really hadn't thought of it in these terms, and I guess we're conditioned not to think of it this way because you're talking about a white player and a black player. It's just sort of the way things are in sports. We don't make those comps, It just doesn't seem to work that way. But he makes an interesting comparison between what's going on in Los Angeles between LeBron and Luka and the movie He Got Game, which came out in 1998. It's a Spike Lee film. If you haven't seen it, it's quite good. It's got Denzel Washington playing the dad and Ray Allen, who was a young star in the NBA at that time at the age of 22, as Jesus Shuttlesworth. And he wasn't named Jesus Shuttlesworth for who you might think. He was named Jesus Shuttlesworth because the dad was a big fan of Earl Monroe in Baltimore. He called him the Truth. And Earl Monroe was known as Black Jesus. So that's why he named his son that. But he writes here, this is Merida, he says, both Luka and LeBron are elite passers. Both have court vision mastery. And because of the age difference, 40 and 26, there's the father-son comparison there. He's not quite old enough to be the father, but LeBron has a son on the team. So why wouldn't you kind of look at it this way? And Merida says when the movie was being made back in 97, 98, he said he got to see a lot of it up close, and he said he got game with Ray Allen as Jesus Shuttlesworth, the best high school player in the nation. Spike Lee knew he had to pass muster with the toughest audience, the NBA players he had befriended during his years as a courtside fixture at Madison Square Garden. So the basketball had to look real. And if you watch the movie, the basketball scenes are obviously very realistic because you have an NBA star doing it. He wanted Allen Iverson to play that part of Jesus Shuttlesworth, and as I read, Iverson didn't want to give up his summer filming the movie, so he chose Ray Allen instead. But as you watch them unfold, it could be a very, very interesting comparison between He Got Game and what we're seeing. They lost the first game of the series to Minnesota, scored only 95 points, but they won the second game, scoring only 94. They held Minnesota to 85 points. A little bit of defense there. So NBA playoffs continue. I got to tell you, not a whole lot on my radar. There's just too damn much to watch right now. And with the Caps in the playoffs, devoting the time to that, the NFL draft tonight, baseball, we've had the Battle of the Beltways with the Nats winning again last night. By the way, Orioles are a mess right now. This is a year that they were supposed to take the next step and start winning some playoff games, and you wonder about the future of Brandon Hyde with the way that they are struggling. They lost again, so that's a game tonight where they hope to salvage the series, but they have been awful lately, and you wonder how much, it's a new owner, and he doesn't want to, come across in his second year really, but he took over really late last year. I mean, does David Rubenstein want to be that guy? So it makes for a very interesting situation. Anyway, get off the Orioles, get back to the Caps. Coming up next, a little more draft yak and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollard Show, ESPN 630. There is a photo making the rounds on social media that we may look at 10, maybe 15 years from now and go, wow, look at those two ships passing in the night. Shot from the locker room where Alex Ovechkin is standing next to Jayden Daniels. Daniels was at the game last night along with his quarterback roommates. They call it the quarterback room now, Marcus Mariota and Sam Hartman, who chugged a beer. And we'll look at that and say, wow, that is the greatest team sport athlete of the last 20 years, certainly, with the maybe greatest team sport athlete in Washington of the next 20 years. I don't know if Jayden Daniels will last 20 years, like the Russian machine never breaks. And Daniels did have a couple of injuries last year, but started every game. Got to give him a lot of credit for that. Man, I watched the first game of the season against Tampa, and I thought, oh, God, this guy is not going to last. And then he took that big shot to the ribs against the Giants, and it was like, oh, my God. He came back, just got the wind knocked out of him, but did injure his ribs against Carolina and had a couple of other injuries along the way, but, managed to stay upright for the entire season, including the NFC Championship game. So he's a lot more resilient than you might think, and all those worries about, oh, my God, he only weighed 210 at the combine, he's too thin, he's not going to last. We'll see. But, Ovechkin, remarkably durable over his years and plays the game in a way that Wayne Gretzky didn't play it, a very physical kind of game. And he didn't have any goals last night, but the Capitals won, and Jayden Daniels, and I think it was the first Caps game he went to, maybe not, but it was a game to go to for sure, as they held on to win the game 3-1. But you look at how these games have gone, and it could easily be 0-2 instead of 2-0. It's just the way hockey works, especially playoff hockey, and Spencer Carbury now in his second playoffs as a head coach. Last year they got swept. Now they're 2-0, but he knows, how close it is between winning and losing.
We could have easily lost game one, right? Matheson gets an opportunity on the backside in regulation, 30 seconds to go. Logan makes a save, goes off, and I... Like that's how thin it is, and yet we're celebrating, and we're up 1-0. The same thing tonight. LT makes a few huge saves, a couple pucks go by the post. We find a second goal, and it's this time of year. Every team is very, very good, and as you just said, and as we're living and you're seeing in every single series, it's one play here or there. It's one power play penalty kill here. It's one save. It's one big moment, and a guy finishes in overtime and scores a goal like Colin Blackwell did the other night for Dallas. It's thin, and so you want to be on the right side of that. And as coaches, you try to prepare your team to put them in the most or the best position possible to get into those opportunities, and then hopefully we're on the right side of it.
So far they are, but let's realize this. 10 times in the Capitals' history, 10 times they've had a 2-0 series lead, and they've lost the series, and it's happened 3 times in the Ovechkin era. 2009 against who else? Pittsburgh, up 2-0. They lose the series 4-3. 2013 against the Rangers, up 2-0. They lose the series 4-3. And then in 2019 against Carolina, up 2-0, they not only lose the series 4-3, but the 7th game here in D.C. goes to 2 overtimes, and Carolina wins 4-3. So been there, done that. And one of the things that Carbury is selling is, hey, let's not get too comfortable here. We're not that great. We have to play tough, grinding hockey to win.
We're a 4-line. We get on top of you. We're not flashy. We're not the fastest team. We're not the most skilled team in the National Hockey League. But what we do is we apply pressure, and we get the puck down in your end, and we stay there. And then the next line does the same thing, and then the next line does. And we can feel that on the bench when we have a hold of momentum and everybody's on the same page with exactly what we do with every puck, and the support's there, and the speed's there, and the communication's there. So it becomes a very predictable. Everybody knows exactly, and I this is the great part about being the head coach of this team is I get to watch, and I know before a player touches, I know exactly where the next puck is going. And so you don't need to say anything because guys just know exactly, and they're reading off one another, and they're predictable to one another. And that's our team. That's when we're at our best, that's what it looks like. And we had a good stretch of this hockey game. We looked like ourselves, and then got away from it a bit in the third.
Yeah, third period was a little shaky there, but they were able to put it away because of the way Logan Thompson performed in goal, just, save after save after save. But they potentially have 2 games left in this series, or they have 5 games left in this series. And this is the time of year where anything can happen. We have seen multiple times in hockey. I don't know whether it's 3, 4, maybe 5 times that teams have had 3-0 leads and blown it. They're 2-0. This thing is really just getting started. They took care of home ice, but now they go on the road to Montreal, and who knows? And here's a guy who's been there before, won a cup with this team, Tom Wilson. This is what he calls the playoff beast.
You just got to be a little bit cleaner. I think there's plays to be made at times, knowing when's the right time to make the play and when's the right time to just, cut bait and throw it under the neutral zone or whatever. So we can be a little bit better. We'll watch some video. Obviously, the playoffs is a different beast. We got to keep building and learning.
Yep. So they go on to game 3. That's tomorrow night in Montreal, and then game 4 will be Sunday evening. And if they lose either of those games or both, they're back here next Wednesday. So it's every other day. Once you get past game 4, they'll have 2 full days off. They would have Monday and Tuesday off before they would resume next Wednesday. To the NFL draft, and this is being called the Shadeur draft because, hard to tell. He could go as high as 3, could drop out of the first round, maybe he slides down to Pittsburgh. There's a lot of different opinions about him. Booger McFarland was on last night on PTI, and he took a look at what teams are saying about Shadeur. And when you think about what he says, it makes a lot of sense. We're looking for splash and dash, and he's a guy who just, has great accuracy, completes passes, just doesn't do it in a sexy way. This is McFarland last night with Tony and Mike on PTI.
Like the further we get into this process and start talking about the NFL draft, we become absolved to like the wow plays. Like we're always looking for the wow plays that we forget about the simple, the mundane, the normal. I love Magic Johnson, and to me, that's what he is. He's the quintessential point guard from the pocket that can deliver the football accurately, precisely, with timing. He's completing 82% of his passes from a clean pocket. And I get it. We're looking for the quarterback that can throw it over his head, that can flip around and do backflips and throw from sidearm. But to me, if you look at the prerequisites for the position, can you deliver the football accurately? Can you throw it with timing? Do you make great decisions? Shadeur Sanders does that the best, and I think there's a place for him in the NFL. And I just don't get all the hate, the people that says that he can't play, that he might not even be a first-round quarterback. I just don't see it.
Booger, I want to move to the place that you are comfortable over a lot of years, the trenches. And other than Abdul Carter, who, let's face it, everybody's agreed is going quickly and happily early in this draft, who do you see, offensive line or defensive line? And it seems like there's a lot of guys, but maybe not a standout. Who stands out to you on either side of the ball in the trenches?
To me, there's a couple of guys. I'll go to some guys that I think have been kind of picked over. I'll start on the offensive side. Will Campbell. I think he's going to be the first offensive lineman picked, but people are criticizing him because his arms are too short. Think about this. His arms were 32 5/8 at the combine. The magic mark is 33. He was 33 at his pro day. So somehow between February and March, his arms grew 3/8 of an inch. Regardless if that's the case or not, to me, he's been playing left tackle for a long time, guys. He's played in the SEC. He started every game at LSU. And I think if you're looking for a franchise left tackle, you're going to draft Will Campbell. You put him at left tackle, and you forget it. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go to Walter Nolan. If you go back a few years, he was the #1 recruit in the nation in high school. He went to Texas A&M. He transferred to Ole Miss. And I think when you look at him, you still see the traits that make him special. Some people don't think he's going to be the first defensive tackle taken. That signature and that thing goes to Mason Graham. But I think Walter Nolan may be the best defensive tackle, the interior guy in the entire draft. The quickness, the twitchiness, his ability to get upfield and play that 3 technique, I think he's outstanding. So Walter Nolan and Will Campbell, 2 guys in the trenches not named Abdul Carter.
Booger, I'm a kid who grew up on Gale Sayers and Walter Payton, and just seeing Ashton Genty on the board, and the Bears may be reasonably close at number 10, even if they have to try to move up, excites me. But running backs have been just sort of dismissed for years, until lately when a guy from the Eagles went crazy on people through the Super Bowl. Where are you on Genty and the importance of a guy like Genty in today's NFL?
Well, I think Saquon showed us that when you can do what he can do behind that offensive line, they won a Super Bowl with it. He was the most valuable player. He's the best running back in football. And if you have a special guy like a Saquon, like a Derrick Henry, like a Christian McCaffrey when they're healthy, that can carry a team that can do it all, to me, that guy is still valuable. With that being said, I don't think there's any chance that Ashton Genty is going to be there at number 10, Mike. I think he's just too good. He's too valuable. Think Emmitt Smith with a little bit of James Conner in him. So he's got the balance and the gliding of Emmitt Smith, but he's got that physical prowess and that contact balance of like a James Conner. That's the type of guy you're getting in Ashton Genty. I think he's in play for Jacksonville at 5, maybe the Raiders at 6. But I don't think he's going to be there for the Bears at 10. Make no mistake about it. The running back is back, and I think all the guys can thank Saquon Barkley for that and the show that he put on in the NFL last season.
So great. You broke Wilbon's heart. You compared him to Emmitt Smith, and then you said that the Bears can't get him.
Trade up.
You know, it's just wonderful. We get you out of here on this. You've mentioned a lot of people that we have heard of already, Booger. Are there any lesser-known players that you particularly like?
You know what, Tony? I love the undersized guys. And there's a little receiver from Iowa State, Jaylen Noel, 5'10", 100 and whatever pounds. And he's going to be the quintessential slot receiver. But he's an alpha. He's a guy that does the one thing that every quarterback loves, and that he separates. He lets the quarterback know at the top of the route when it's time to throw the football. And I think you're going to be able to put him in the slot for whatever team that's drafted him, and he's going to be dynamite in a bottle. He'll catch a ton of balls across the middle. He's not Tedoroy McMillan. He's not Matthew Golden. He's not some of the other top receivers that you've heard about. But make no mistake about it, if you get Jaylen Noel on your team, he's from Iowa State. I know Wilbon knows about him, but some people don't watch football that's not in the SEC. They just don't watch it. But if you haven't watched Jaylen Noel, he will be outstanding for your team. You put him in the slot, and as George Foreman said years ago, set it and forget it.
The George Foreman grill. Tremendous.
Yeah, it's a funny exit line by Booger McFarland, but not quite accurate. Late, great George Foreman, yes, he made a fortune selling those grills, and he was a great pitch man. But that wasn't his line. The line he's talking about, set it and forget it, that belongs to Ron Popeil. Ron Popeil, who sold a variety of products, most notably the rotisserie oven, where he would put 6 chickens on a spit and put the spit inside the oven, close it up, and would say, set it and forget it. And it became sort of like the Bruce Springsteen of infomercials because he said it so often that he didn't even need to say it anymore, just like Springsteen gets up and does his concert and everybody sings the lyrics of his songs while he's doing it. He just put the rotisserie chickens in and the audience took over.
Set it and forget it.
Set it and forget it.
You just set it and forget it.
You just set it and you forget about it. You just set it and then forget it.
You just set it and forget it. Set it and forget about it.
You set it and forget it.
There it goes. I'll slide this over. Get this chicken over, and this chicken over, and I'll just walk over here. I'll put it in this new Pro model. I'll slide it back. If you followed all the instructional material, you just set it and forget it.
Yes, sir. Ron Popeil knew how to sell rotisserie chickens, that's for sure. and he became a cult hero. I like the pocket fisherman, and if you become famous enough, you get parodied. And the Dan Aykroyd Bass-O-Matic, where he would put an actual bass in a blender, was a send-up to Ron Popeil. So it was Ron Popeil, Booger, who said, set it and forget it, not George Foreman. But, easy to confuse because both of them were incredible in the infomercial business. But that belonged to Ron Popeil. Whether we set it and forget it and see what happens with the wide receiver or quarterback or defensive end or tackle who he likes, we'll have to see. But all gets started 8 o'clock tonight. I would imagine, God, the Commanders, if they stay at 29, you're not picking until midnight. It's 10 minutes a pick. You go on the clock at 8, so, and by the time they do all that other, chazarai where they bring them out in their suits and all that stuff, it's going to be a long night if you're going to stay up for the Commanders pick. I'll just see who they pick in the morning and have my reaction to that if I have any, because this is not like last year. It's not like picking Jayden Daniels at number 2. All right, that's enough of that. We got the draft coming up tonight, so tomorrow we'll have a recap on whatever is done, including what the Commanders are going to do at 29 and more. Have a great rest of the day. Bram is next, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.